Andy Johnson. The topic of this mini lecture is teaching toward an academic standard. Whether we like them or not, standards are a part of educational life in this year 2021 and beyond. It could be titled Why Academic Standards Are Often Very Silly, and they often are very silly. But let us take a look. This is a draft of one of the latest standards for from the Minnesota Department of Education. We're going to break this down or unpack it. It starts with an anchor standard or a foundation of reading, what everyone should know. And again, this is a draft, hasn't been fully approved yet, but foundation of reading. Demonstrate knowledge of oral language, phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics, and morphology to read accurately and fluently. So do all of those things in order to read accurately and fluently. So let us unpack. Number one, demonstrate knowledge of oral language. I have no idea what they mean by this. Does that mean grammar? How to speak? Knowledge? I have no idea. But they're going to use this to read accurately and fluently. Phonological awareness. Okay, I know what that is. Work with sounds within words, breaking words apart and putting them back together based on sounds. It's a little different than phonemic awareness. Phoneme has to do with sound. Hearing sounds within words, that's phonemic awareness. Phonics, putting letters to sound. Yes, we know what that is. Use phonics to read accurately and fluently. That makes sense. Morphology. Think of prefix, suffix, and roots. A morpheme is the smallest linguistic part of the word that still has meaning. So we want students to be able to use prefixes, suffixes, and roots to read accurately and fluently. No problem with that. Who could argue with that? Read accurately. Correctly recognize words. This is different from identifying words, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But correctly recognize words. And this is best measured or demonstrated by having students read an authentic piece of text, a page or a paragraph, usually 100 to 150 or more words. And you simply use a running record to see how many words they can accurately recognize. Using words in context, like a page and paragraph, they are able to, students are able to, the readers are able to use semantics and syntax to recognize words as they read along with phonics. That's why trying to measure students by having them recognize words and lists are out of context really isn't a very valid measure of their ability to read accurately. All right, read fluently. That means with prosody. Prosody means that you'll have the correct inflection. Your reading sounds somewhat like people talking. Correct. And you pause at the end. Correct inflection. You pause. Questions go up. And adequate rate. All right, that's the anchor standard. Now the benchmarks. The benchmarks are ways for students to demonstrate that they can do that anchor standard. It has to be measurable, numbers, or an authentic product or performance of some kind, able to put it in a portfolio so students can demonstrate that they can do that thing. That's what a benchmark is. So let's take a look at it. Students need to know and apply grade level phonics, whatever grade level is, and word analysis skills. That is word parts and morphemes, and we'll get to that. We want them to be able to decode words, and what they mean is identify versus recognize. Identify means you see a word in print, you don't know what it is, and you have to consciously employ some strategy. Either word parts, which is families or patterns or phonograms. There's a word, do I recognize any letter pattern? Can I use that to help me decode it or help me identify it? They really mean identify. Morphemic analysis, There's some prefixes that I recognize. Can I use that to help me identify these words? Phonics, letter sounds. They left out context or semantics. We use context to help us identify words. Identify words means you need to use a strategy. Recognize means you see it instantly, you know what it is. If you don't recognize it, then you have to try to use a strategy to identify. And they are mixing up decoding words, which is just sounding out words using the code. And we use more than the code. We use syntax and semantics, of course. But identify, they mean using some strategy. All right, let's move on. The fourth one, or the next one, know the spelling sound correspondence for common vowel graphemes. All right, a grapheme is a letter that stands for a sound, a letter or a couple of letters put together. You say this is the spelling and this is the sound that it makes. So you know these spelling sound correspondence for common vowel graphemes. All right, as an example, the long A sound, all these different graphemes make the long A sound. This spelling makes that sound. Able to decode, and they really mean identify words, multisyllabic words that include prefixes, suffixes, and vowel diagraphs. That means you're able to use prefixes and suffixes to identify the words. And vowel diagraphs, these little things, two vowels put together to make a single sound. Oh yes, I recognize that vowel diagraph. I'm going to use that to help me identify the words. And by the way, regress a little bit, I would posit that if you would ask a whole bunch of teachers what a grapheme is or a vowel grapheme, I would posit that 90% could not tell you what a vowel grapheme was or is. And probably equal number could not tell you what a vowel diagraph is. Why do we have all these complicated words and terms to make it more complicated? All right, off on a tangent. These are common vowel phonemes and graphemes. Phoneme is the sound. Grapheme is the letter or letter patterns. All these make the sound. Ooh, all these letters or letter patterns make the ooh sound. You get the idea. Phoneme is the sound. Grapheme is the letter or letter pattern. Okay, read high-frequency words, most frequent words is what they mean, in and out of context to demonstrate both accuracy and automaticity. High-frequency words, that's like Dolch list, the most frequent list, or Zeno, sight words is what they mean. And you have to do this in the context of the sentence. Here's one in the context of the sentence. Or most frequent words outside the context of the sentence. That means just a list or a flashcard or some such other thing. You need to do this to demonstrate both accuracy and automaticity. Accuracy, we know how to measure or demonstrate, simple running record, but automaticity, how do you demonstrate automaticity? Well, you could have an oral recording of you reading something, and it's complicated, but they wanted to get that in there. So how do you teach then these academic standards? Well, you have little lessons over time. Over the course of the year, you are going to try to teach all these things, not in a single lesson. You'll take maybe one vowel diagraph or whatever it is. Over time, you use formative assessment to get a sense of when students have mastered that skill. And when they have mastered it, then you document that it is mastered. All right, just some thoughts on teaching toward an academic standard.